It's time to huddle up at the weekly Huddle podcast because draft season doesn't stop, and neither do we. Newt Westen joining you once again for another summer scouting positional ranking episode. Really excited about what we have in store for today. We're looking at the wide receiver group. I actually got a chance to look at 15 wide receivers ahead of this episode. I feel pretty confident about the top 10 for this group. Obviously, there are players out there that could change the rankings in order that I have them in. With that, I did want to list off my 15 through 11 to pay a little bit of due in respect to those guys that didn't quite make the list. Before I do that, if you've been watching and following along with this and have enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel. The content that Owen puts out on here is wonderful, and with summer scouting kind of right in full swing now, we're going to have a ton of episodes out. And then later on, as we actually get into college football season and then draft season, there's going to be some amazing content on here. So please consider subscribing. If you enjoy the video by the end, please give it a thumbs up. We really appreciate it. Without further ado, though, my 15 through 11, Jonte Cook II comes in at number 15. He spent 2 years at the University of Texas, primarily in a backup role. He'll be transferring to Syracuse, or he has already transferred to Syracuse ahead of the 2025 season. Evan Stewart started his career at Texas A&M for 2 seasons, and last year transferred to Oregon. He will be returned to Oregon this year. He comes in at number 14, player that I probably, based on consensus and where other players have him, maybe a little bit lower than the larger board. But on to number 13, Deion Burks. He spent 3 years at Purdue. He has since transferred to Oklahoma last year. He'll be returning for his redshirt senior season. Coming at number 12, Kevin Concepcion, player that I might be a little bit lower on as well compared to consensus. He has spent 2 years at NC State, had an electric freshman year. He is transferring to Texas A&M ahead of the 2025 season. And then finally, number 11 is Nick Harbor, who spent 2 years at South Carolina and will be returning there. Finally, someone stays at their own school, or I should say the school that they started at. He'll be returning there for his junior season ahead of this 2025 season. So that gives us our top 10, and we will kick it off with J. Michael Sturdivant. This is a player that if you told me you had J. Michael Sturdivant in your top 3, I'd be like, okay, I can see it. If you told me you had him outside your top 20, I would have the same response because he is such a polarizing player, not only in the takes and the evaluations that he gets from analysts, but also the way he plays. I think one of the biggest weaknesses that I have written down for him, and one of the most jaw-dropping stats for him, is the inconsistencies in his game. He has 2 games with more than 100 yards receiving, and they were electric versus USC and Minnesota. USC, he put on a clinic. It was some of the most amazing catches that I have seen, especially considering the fact that it was all in one game. It was truly a performance that, I felt like I was kind of given a gift in order to be able to watch that. It was so amazing. But you take those 2 games and you pair them with 4 other games where he did not record a single catch or any yards at all. One of them he was not even targeted in. So the production from him is just a pendulum that swings from one side to the next. On top of that, he's had these jaw-dropping catches multiple times. But he also has a drop rate that is around 8%. And when you take a look at the number of targets and number of receptions he only has 2 drops, but that is only on 40 targets, which is less than half of some of these other guys on this list. So something where just the inconsistencies for him, I think, make him an extremely polarizing prospect. What's great about his game, aside from those highlight catches, I think that he is really good at deep ball tracking. Some of those big catches came on a 30, 40-yard pass, and he did a really good job of getting himself in a position where he was able to catch the ball. I think he's a plus run blocker. He's one that understands how to be physical, get his hands up. He's not going to be like known for that, but he still is an above average run blocker in my opinion. And with him, he's really good in contested catch situations. It's kind of a double-edged sword I'll talk about in a second, but he understands how to get up, extend his hands, and he does a really good job of winning those 50-50 balls. Now, part of the issue of that is he's in too many contested catch opportunities. Over 25% of his targets were contested targets. It's something where he, in my opinion, really struggles to create separation. I think he's great off the line. He plays decent in press coverage or against press coverage, but he really struggles from a dynamic athletic perspective to create healthy separation. Something that I'm not sure, what his ceiling is for that. It feels low to me in terms of what he can do is add true separator at the next level. So because of that, because of the inconsistencies, he falls in at number 10, a highlight reel waiting to happen, but also a low light reel waiting to happen. So we'll see what his time at Florida, where he is now transferred to for his redshirt season year, will bring him. Looking forward for him to kind of build on some of those momentous occasions. Number 9 is Malachi Fields. Malachi Fields is going to be one of a handful of players that are a little bit bigger in this class with J. Michael Sturdivant. Michael Sturdivant was 6'3", coming in at 205. Malachi Fields is 6'4", 220. And Malachi Fields looks all of that and more. He is an enormous wide receiver. When you see him out there, you can tell immediately who he is when he's on the field. That massive frame, that thick build are wonderful for his catch radius. They're wonderful for him as a route runner. He's not getting knocked off his routes. He's able to use his body to his advantage, and he has an understanding of how to do that. He does have good hands on top of that. He's going to utilize that frame and pluck balls out of the air, and all of that kind of builds a player that's really good in contested catch opportunities. Now, same issue that Sturdivant had, he's not the athlete that's going to create that separation. So unfortunately, he's living in a contested catch opportunity a little too often. Over 25% of his as well were contested catch targets. So his athleticism does put a lower ceiling on his potential, in my opinion. In addition to that, he wasn't as good of a blocker as I'd like to see, especially given his size, not only his length, but his thick build. I would like to see a little bit more of that. And like Sturdivant, he's also coming into his redshirt senior season. He spent 4 years at the University of Virginia. He's transferring to Notre Dame ahead of the 2025 season. But with that, I think that he has that frame that is, I don't want to say pro-ready, but it is a big-bodied receiver that if he can learn to pick up some more nuances of route running, that he can overcome maybe some athletic limitations and become a more refined route runner, he has an opportunity to really be a thriving presence in the NFL. Makai Lemon comes in at number 8. Makai Lemon is one of the 2024 USC receivers that seem to kind of have blown up. These guys have all these different skill sets, and Makai Lemons is really, really good with what he has to work with. He's going to be a player 5'11" and 190 pounds. He plays bigger than that. He plays big outside of his size, in my opinion. He is really good in contested catch situations, especially for being a sub 6 foot receiver. His hands, likewise, are really good. Drop percentage of only 1.9%. You love to see that. And his technique as a pass catcher, he's always extending them, getting them out in front of him, meeting the football. So with that, you do love to see that. He's also a great deep ball tracker, and he's an experienced returner. One of the things with Lemon is he's not necessarily like I'm going to make you miss kind of receiver, but if you put him out in space and you give him blockers, he has a good understanding of how to use that, and it's that return aspect of his game really shining through. With some of the weaknesses that follow Makai Lemon, he does struggle with separation off the line when he's jammed. He's not big enough, in my opinion, to really play against that press coverage. I think he might be a slot only type player. He does not necessarily have the third, fourth gear to really stretch the field. He's not a slow receiver by any means, and he's not, unathletic, but he just doesn't have that field stretching speed. And with that, him being on the smaller side, I want to see him probably add a little bit more mass to his frame to be able to hold up, especially if he's running underneath routes where he's in congested areas of the field. He's going to get hit a lot if he's running these slants, hooks, out routes. He's got to have a little bit more meat on his bones if he's going to hold up to some of the punishment that the NFL is going to dish out his way. He spent both seasons at USC, and he's returning for his junior year at USC. Like I said, he also brings the potential as a returner. He did suffer an injury this last year. It was a head neck injury as a returner. Missed basically 2 games. He got injured early. I want to say it was against Michigan State, and then missed the next game, the Wisconsin Badger game. So he comes in at number 8. Probably the first slot receiver that I get an opportunity to talk about today. And pairing that with our next player, we have his former teammate, Zachariah Branch. So Zachariah Branch was kind of the other half of that slot duo that USC had. They ran a lot of 4 wide. And even when they ran 3 wide, you might have both these players on the field. Lemon was in the outside receiver position about 13% of the time, Branch about 20% of the time, but primarily both of those players played the slot in a lot of 4 wide looks from USC. Branch also would take return duties. He actually did have some accolades as a punt and a kick returner, all Pac-12 honorable mention in 2023 for that. He is transferring to the University of Georgia ahead of this season, so you'll not see him paired up anymore with Lemon. I would envision kind of seeing him getting some of those primary opportunities in the slot for Georgia. With Branch, he is a little bit on the lighter side, and when I say a little bit, I mean really a lot of bit. He's 175 pounds at 5'11", so the length is decent, but the frame is just so incredibly light. Now, with that, the one thing that he does is he brings that electric athleticism that you want to see. When you have a guy that is that light, they have to be able to move in a different way, and I think Zachariah Branch absolutely does that. He is really good at start-stop ability. He can make very quick cuts when he's both running routes and with the ball in his hands. On top of that short area quickness, he pairs that with some good top-end speed. That's kind of what pushes him above Makai Lemon in my book. And he's going to be, more likely than not, a slot receiver. One of the roles of that is you have to be able to block, especially when you look at how the NFL runs with 11 personnel. He's going to be on the field for a good handful of running downs, and he will be a willing and a tenacious blocker, especially given his size. Kind of with that, he's highly competitive. He is out there on every single snap looking to execute to the best of his ability. On the weaker side of things, his frame is obviously just going to be a little bit of a detriment. Not a short guy, but he is light. He's going to have to put some weight on if he's going to be able to hold up. His hands, I didn't like them as much as I liked Lemon. He doesn't necessarily attack the ball. He's more of a body catcher. One of the things that I noticed, especially in the game against Michigan, he was out there on a comeback route, and he was fading away from the ball, and Michigan cornerback immediately stepped in front and took it for a pick six. So I want to see him attack the ball. I want to see him go out and get it. His hands, for me, they're just not as active and as aggressive to snatch the ball as I would like. And then finally, he has kind of a limited route tree. Truthfully, I want to see a guy that's able to, with his quickness and his ability to run routes, have a larger route tree and be able to, do more and be more like unexpectable. But he really is not. He has kind of a basis point that he's working off of. I have him as a 6B. I have him dead tied with my 6A. And yet again, I have another slot here. I promise I don't lump all my slot receivers together. But here we have Aaron Anderson out of LSU. He did spend 1 year at Alabama, his freshman year, and he has since transferred to LSU. That was in 2023. So he'll be coming up on his third year, I believe, in LSU. So with Aaron Anderson, he is short. He's 5'8". So really, really small receiver. Going to be in the bottom 10th percentile, maybe even the bottom 5th percentile. I didn't look it up ahead of this. But he has mass. He's 187 pounds. So he's got a good dense build to him. Shorter build, but it's a dense build at least. He's another electric athlete. And when you look at these slot players, you need to be that electric athlete. He has really good speed, once again, to stretch the field. He's got great body control on the perimeter. So when you're looking at him, being able to catch the ball and be effective over all parts of the field, not only over the middle on crossing and slant routes, he's able to get on out routes and have good body control there. And once again, kind of in that role, slot only, in my opinion, he does have some upside as a returner and some experience as a returner. The frame, obviously, being a weakness. And then, for me, his hands need to take a step forward. So he will go out and get the ball, but his drop rate it's too high, in my opinion. He had a 9% drop rate, and it's something where when you start getting this high, you're causing like a detriment on what could be a really explosive play. If he can clean those two things up, I think he's easily fighting for the number one slot in this year's class. I think he's a guy that's not getting talked about enough. I've heard very few people talk about him. I honestly hear more people talking about Nick Anderson, who I haven't, to be fair, gotten a chance to watch. But Aaron Anderson, for me, was a firm top 10 player. I would be surprised if by the time my summer scouting is done, he gets pushed all the way out of that. I think he's for sure going to be locked into my top 10 ahead of the 2025 college football season. And that takes us to my top 5. Before we head into that, once again, if you have not already done so, please, please, please consider subscribing. It, once again, helps us out a ton. If you guys have enjoyed this so far, feel free to give it a thumbs up. We appreciate that. The players that I just got done talking about, especially those slot players, if you take a look at kind of where they're on my board, obviously with 6A and 6B, but then you put Mekhi Lemon in there and even Malachi Fields, they all are kind of in a tier of their own where I would say that, any one of them could kind of like fluctuate, especially as we start to kick off the 2025 season. Immediately I might see some things that players have very specifically worked on in the offseason that causes them to shift. That's kind of how close they are. With this next group, there is a pretty big gap between Aaron Anderson and my number 5 receiver, who comes in as Eric Singleton Jr. Singleton Jr. is I got to get it in front of me, a junior, no pun intended, now he is out of Auburn, spent 2 years at Georgia Tech. So his freshman and his sophomore year at Georgia Tech. In that time, he earned all ACC honorable mention honors twice. He was freshman All-American and the ACC Rookie of the Year runner-up in 2023. So a player that has, in both seasons, made the most of his opportunities. For Singleton, I have him down as a Z or a Y receiver. He is a very quick receiver when you start looking at his ability to both stretch the field and play in short area. He's an excellent move receiver for that. He has maybe opportunities for end arounds or screen plays. With him, he's another player that is built very dense. 5'11", 190, but I think that 190 is a little misleading. Or if it is, he knows how to put the weight on in a really effective way, because his build is nothing where I'm concerned about the weight that he's carrying. I don't think he's too light per se. I think that every part of how he has put that on is done really well. He's a player that has the opportunity to be a really good yak receiver. With him, he's got a pretty good yards after catch per reception, 5.6. And with that, it's a lot of consistency for him. So it's not just one play that is blowing that stat up. He's doing it kind of down in and down out. He also, once again, pairs that with the ability to be a runner, to be put out in space, and make the most as a ball carrier rather than a pass catcher. And then, as I already said, he does have really good long speed where he's able to stretch the field. Some of the things that are holding him back are going to be his hands. He's a body catcher. He's not meeting the ball within there. He doesn't create a ton of separation on his routes. A lot of his opportunities came on that pre-snap movement. So Georgia Tech was able to scheme him open a fair amount with that pre-snap motion. And once they got the ball to him, it was, like I said, fairly lights out. He was able to do really effective things, but they did have to scheme him a lot. And because of that, it kind of created a limited route tree for him. I'm not sure, what he's able to do from a more traditional look. I'd like to see that, especially at Auburn, if they can get him kind of running that, traditional skill set for a wide receiver, so he can both refine it and show that he has the ability to do that. So Eric Singleton comes in at number 5. Number 4, who is right in the same tier as Singleton, only a couple hundredths of a point off of my scale, is going to be Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams. So he'll be coming up on his redshirt junior year. He did miss most of 2023 due to an injury. With him, he last year was a first team All ACC member, also a All ACC academic team. Love shouting that out. Love a guy that gets it done both on the field and in the classroom. Like a player like Aaron Anderson, Antonio Williams, to me, the term electric comes to mind. And I think, truthfully, Antonio Williams is the best I don't want to say maybe not best separator in this class, but the most electric mover, and has some of the most exciting routes that he can run because of those movement skills. He has great route fakes. He has an understanding of the footwork that goes into route running, and he bursts off the line. If he's not the best separator, he's definitely has the best release, in my opinion. And he showed it against press coverage. He has an understanding of how to beat that more with speed than handwork, which is something that he can improve upon. But his just ability to react quickly and get himself off the line and into what is a really quick opportunity to be a receiver is going to be something that sets him above a lot of players in this class, and is really, beneficial when you take a look at what a quarterback wants out of a receiver. He has that speed that can stretch the field on top of having that really good short area quickness. So with, double moves or route fakes, if he can have a defensive back on him a little bit tighter because of his ability to move so well in that short and limited space, he can create maybe big plays over the top with his ability to stretch the field. He's another player that you like to see in the move role. I have him down as a Z receiver. You could see him in a Y as well, but I think he'll probably spend a lot of his time outside, just given his skill set. And he is another player that excels in contested catch situations because of his ability to get his hands out there and meet the ball. I really like seeing that from a guy, and I mentioned it already, when you're below 6 feet tall and you are thriving in contested catch situations, that's a good thing to be seeing, because not only are you able to get it done with your ability to run routes and get open, but you're also able to win that ball when you just have to force it into those situations. For him, he's another player that kind of suffered the drops in 2024. He had a 9.6% drop rate, and it's just something like you got to get better. I'm not sure if there are concentration drops or he's not meeting it. I know that he knows how to go and get the ball. I've seen it. So it makes me wonder, with that good technique, what's happening to have you on 100 targets have that high of a drop rate? Something that definitely needs to get cleaned up. And then he really has never been asked to do a lot as a blocker. He, more often than not, on running plays for Clemson, is put out wide, and he's asked to go as if it's a pass route, and then takes a cornerback with him. Very, very few opportunities where he's actually said, hey, we need you in here to block. Even when he is in the slot, more likely than not, he's running a route rather than actually putting his hands on a receiver. And it's not a detriment of his per se. It's just kind of what Clemson asked him to do. Would like to see maybe a little bit more with that, but at the end of the day, you can only take what the offensive scheme is going to give you. And then rounding out kind of this group of three for me, this 3-4-5 grouping, is Jordan Tyson. I think early on, Jordan Tyson has kind of been that name that has been talked about a ton in especially the draft media that I am around as wide receiver one. He has a lot of traits that warrant that. And I'm not here saying that Jordan Tyson wide receiver one talk is garbage, is rubbish. Not at all. I see it and I understand it. When you take a look at him, he is a player that it's a gifted athlete. He has an excellent short area burst, helps with his separation. He's probably is the best separator in the class. I said Antonio Williams might be. He's probably fighting Jordan Tyson for that as the best separator in this class. He's a reliable target. He had 75 catches in 2024, and that's with having an injury later in the season. So something where he is consistently being, sought after to get the ball to. Leavitt is obviously looking his way, more often than not as that go-to type receiver. And you love seeing that and that reliability from a receiver. He does have solid long speed as well. He can threaten the field. And really good stop. His comebacks are clean and crisp. He's able to gear down extremely well and have that defender either blow by him or take a couple extra steps and be on a comeback or a hitch route, right there open with good timing and anticipation. That is a pass that is going to be completed 99 out of 100 times. Now, the one time that it's not going to be, or I should say more like the 10 times that it's not going to be, are going to be the times that Jordan Tyson drops the ball. He is, once again, in this class that feels like a ton of receivers struggle to have a decent drop percentage. He's another one that can suffer the dropsies every now and then. He an 8.5 drop percentage. I don't want to say not awful, but it's got to be better. When you're asked to be like the guy and you have that high of a drop rate, and on top of that, he had 2 fumbles in 2024. It's frustrating, and it's something where you can still obviously provide and be a benefit to your team. I'm not saying you're detriment, but you have to be better. And that's probably the biggest thing for me that drives down my evaluation of him is I can't have a receiver out there that has that high of a drop rate as my wide receiver one. On top of that, he has a low missed forced tackle percentage. It's only 0.09. Most of what he does after the catch the manufacturer runs is angles a run and is able to pick up some yards out of bounds, which, more power to him. He is able to create an efficient path of getting those extra yards, but he's not really doing a ton with the ball in his hands after the catch. That 0.09 of the players that I've talked about today, The only one lower than that is Nick Harbor at number 11, and then Sturdivant is tied with him at point 09 as well. So, sorry, Evan Stewart as well at point 06. But you get the picture that I'm painting. It's not a great missed tackles force percentage. I want him to be more creative with the ball in his hands, and that's something with his athleticism. It's something that I think he can grow into and get better with, but he needs to dedicate himself to that as well. 3, 4, 5, all very, very close. I mean, honestly, like I said, with my other kind of grouping of 4, flip a coin, and that position, that ranking might change if I put another game on. It might change it just enough to have Singleton flip to 3, or Williams flip up to 3 as well. So 3 guys that really, really like them. But as we kind of move past them, we get to my number 2 wide receiver, who I feel really firm about. I really, really like this player. And I went as far as to, when I was talking to Owen about this episode, call him a my guy. And funny enough, my other my guy is another University of Washington player. Denzel Boston comes in at number 2. A player that I've seen typically as a top 5 receiver, but like the number 5 receiver. And for me, he's a guy that does a lot of things really, really well. He comes in at 6'4", 209. And with that, his frame shows up in really every part of his game. He has a massive catch radius, and he's able to use that really well. He moves his hands out to meet the ball. He does not have a high drop percentage, 4.5, which is below the NFL average. Maybe a little bit lower, but I'm not going to complain about that at this point. And he's a player that knows how to make the most out of every opportunity at the catch point. On top of that, if you put him in maybe a more pro-style defense where he's playing against press coverage, he's shown the ability to fight through and get off of that press coverage. So you may have a little bit more of a slender build, which is probably my biggest weakness for him, is that he needs to add some weight, because he does get knocked off his routes a little bit too easily. But even so, he's able to have good technique at the point of release, where he's able to fight off press coverage very, very well. Being a bigger receiver, one of the biggest things to look at is how crisp of a route runner he is, and he delivers. He has a great double move that he's able to utilize to get off. He does a really good job with head fakes, and it's something when you pair that size with that ability to run routes. I think that he really is almost the full package in terms of what you want with size and ability. The other big knock I have against him, and I think this is possibly going to put a little bit of a ceiling on it for him, is going to be his athleticism. He's a decent athlete. He's not a bad athlete by any means, but he's only a decent athlete. He's never going to wow in athletic agility drills, and he's not going to be a player that poses a ton after the catch. Still has a decent yards after the catch perception, 5.3, and above 10% missed tackles forced. But he's just okay with that. An element of his game that, with his size, I don't know if he'll ever truly be that electric of a player after the catch, but definitely something that I saw maybe as a weakness to his game. So Denzel Boston comes in at number 2, and then finally, my number 1 wide receiver is Carnell Tate out of Ohio State University, the Ohio State University. So if you take a look, obviously, at last year, Ohio State, you have Emeka Egbuka, who was a really exciting prospect. He's a prospect that his name had been out there for a while, and I think he delivered with a really big year, and in my opinion, got the draft recognition that he deserved for that as a top 20 pick. And you also have an understanding for Jeremiah Smith, who's this freshman that burst onto the scene and really was everything that he kind of was expected to be. Very highly touted recruit, and he really delivered. Carnell Tate is a player that, unless you love Buckeyes, you might not have heard this player's name a ton in draft circles or highlights. But man, is he an amazing wide receiver and continues to prop up Ohio State as wide receiver U. So let's start with the good with Carnell Tate. He is a fluid athlete, and when I say fluid, I maybe compare him to Antonio Williams. And Antonio Williams, I'm not saying he's robotic, because he's not. He's electric. Everything is very, very quick, and it is sudden. Carnell Tate's not that. He's not sudden, but he moves very, very smoothly. He gears down and up like effortlessly in his route running, and it's something that you probably don't notice it because it doesn't have that abrupt nature to it, but he does such a good job of getting open and separating with that kind of like subtle, I would say, athleticism. He has excellent body control. He could put on a clinic for toe taps on the sideline. He has a really good frame about him. 6'3", 191, a little bit on the later side, but for right now, I'll take that. Hopefully he can put, once again, a little bit more muscle on his frame, fill it out a little bit, but he understands how to use that long frame of his to utilize a larger catch radius and how to drop his feet and play on the sidelines really, really well. Natural hands catcher, which you'll love to see. He's going to be a player that also, kind of surrounding all of these elements, that he's got the athleticism, the size, the intellect in terms of like technique. He's a student of the game. He understands how to win as a wide receiver. I think a lot of that comes to, what they do at Ohio State and how they coach guys, and, what the program has bred and continues to breed. He just understands how to be an effective route runner, the nuances of the game, and how to attack coverage in different ways. It's something that, it can be taught, but not everyone is willing to learn it. And Carnell Tate has already proven that he's willing to put the time in. Is he perfect? No. He definitely still has things that he needs to learn about it, but he's shown that he has the ability to be a student of the game. So something that I think is maybe a little bit underrated, but I think goes a long way in terms of creating a player that is truly maybe like a pro-ready type player. Negatives for him, he will round off his routes. He's not, like I said, that crisp athlete, and with that, I think it does lead to him struggling to create nice, crisp, sharp routes. He has some concentration drops, and I mean, like, it's pure concentration. If you look at the college football semifinal against Texas, there's a ball that hit him right here, and it was going to be a touchdown, like easiest touchdown in the world, and he just dropped it. Something that I'm sure he's looking to clean up. Still a drop rate below NFL league average. I can live with that. But he, to me, kind of is the things that rounds out, like, hey, what are you looking for when you want an X wide receiver? Well, Carnell Tate brings a lot of those elements to the table. One more thing for him, and this is, it's not a weakness per se, but I think that if you take a look at Ohio State last year, there were 2 running backs drafted, 1 wide receiver, 1 quarterback, 3 offensive linemen, and there's also Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate was in that mix, and he was an effective member of that group. But now that group is gone, and I'm not saying that there's no one there, but there is definitely kind of a changing of the guard. Is he able to rise above and really, alongside Jeremiah Smith, do some damage and be an effective wide receiver to carry that offense and continue to look as dominant as they have in years past? As I've said, everything that I've seen from Carnell Tate tells me yes. With his athleticism, his size, and his understanding of the game, he is, for me, an easy wide receiver one, and one that's kind of without question. So yeah, that's where my top 5 wide receivers come in. My top 10 in general. Just kind of running through it backwards. We have once again Carnell Tate, Denzel Boston, Jordan Tyson, Antonio Williams, Eric Singleton round out the top 5. Aaron Anderson, Zachariah Branch, both tied for that 6th spot. Makai Lemon coming in at 8. Malachi Fields at 9. And J. Michael Sturdivant coming in at number 10 to round out the top 10. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Weekly Huddle. Appreciate you hanging out with us. If you're enjoying the football talk, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's coming next. As always, you can keep up with the show on YouTube by searching the Weekly Huddle and on Twitter at Weekly Huddle. You can find me on Twitter if you look up at NFL Draft _Weston. You can see my takes and scouting notes between episodes. Catch you next time.